This girl was taken just before the war, and this girl was dancing the Lambeth Walk. I was photographing the street and the children, and suddenly she started to dance.
Hello there. Bill Brandt was one of those forces of nature who, at an early stage, recognized the huge potential of the photographic medium. Through his explorations and innovations, he opened the doors for photographers that followed. He was born in 1904, a little over 60 years after Fox Talbot had discovered how to create a photographic negative. So the medium was still in its infancy when Brandt began taking an interest in photography. His influence is probably on a par with that of Edward Weston, who was about 18 years older than him. American photographers have understandably gained far more attention because the big museums and collectors have shaped the medium's narrative. I look at Brandt's life and work and how he laid the foundations for photographers working today. Brandt had to face serious challenges in his early years. He grew up in Hamburg with a German mother and an English father, and was bullied relentlessly at school because of his English roots. He had weak lungs and spent 4 years in sanatoriums receiving treatment for tuberculosis. It was during this extended period of isolation that he discovered photography. Before settling in England, Brandt had an important few months studying with and assisting Man Ray in Paris. During this time, he became immersed in the Parisian surrealistic scene and adopted many of their avant-garde ideas. In particular, with regard to photography, he wanted to go beyond merely seeing and making pictures from an objective standpoint. He set himself on a path to produce a highly personalized style by distorting reality to communicate mood and psychological tension. This period of learning was central to the evolution of his work. His development as a photographer through the 1930s and 40s ran parallel with the growing popularity of picture-driven magazines like Lilliput and Picture Post. Even though Brandt came from a wealthy background, he was very aware of the English class system and the disparities in wealth, status, and lifestyle. He began focusing his attention on English society to expose these inequalities without moralizing or resorting to sentimentality. He would often use his family's connections to gain access to the affluent sectors of society. This shot, called Parlourmaid and Under Parlourmaid Ready to Serve Dinner, was taken in the house of one of Brandt's banker uncles. He's caught their expressions brilliantly using his Rolleiflex. We don't know if the two women are merely concentrating on the task of serving the guests or whether they're thinking critical thoughts about the upper classes.
The woman has such character. And whatever she did, she looked good and right. Anybody could have taken this picture, anybody. But it is a different world, isn't it? From now on, this wouldn't exist anymore. And at the time it was quite normal.
Martin Parr would continue this theme by pointing out the absurdities of the class system and how each strata was constrained by codes of behavior. Brandt's two books, The English at Home and A Night in London, aren't just documents. A friend said that he never made a photograph unless he had something to say, and it seemed that he had a lot to say. His pictures revealed a moody, divided, psychologically charged Britain. 5 decades later, Paul Graham picked up on this idea of documenting the mood of the country. His 2 books, A1, The Great North Road, and Beyond Caring, portray the British as suspended and detached. They seem removed from the systems and structures that have been created around them. Both of these photographers were drawn to those that had been overlooked, and their mundane scenes that they photographed became deeply layered with meaning. Brandt's strong connections with the picture magazines allowed him to take on in-depth projects to explore the challenges faced by the working class. In order to document the gloomy British industrial landscape, he headed up to the north of England and photographed the harsh lives of mining communities. Look at this picture of miners' accommodation. They didn't bother to put in windows on the roadsides of the homes.
Yes. Yes, it was lucky to have such a good composition. I didn't change anything. It was like this. And the boys, when they saw me photographing, they came running towards me. Yes, I was doing pictures of the miners, mainly in Northumberland. These people were in Northumberland, they were so nice. It was long before the war, of course. It had no introductions. I just knocked at the door and asked, may I take some photographs? And they were very friendly and said, oh yes, of course, do what you like.
Chris Killip later inherited this subject matter in his project In Flagrante, but he shifted the engagement from the position of observer to one of being a participant. Brandt had produced his work during the 30s and 40s when the class system was still entrenched, while in the 70s and 80s, the Thatcher era, Killip was witnessing the collapse of social and industrial structures. Brandt took this picture in Halifax, and landscape photographer Michael Kenner in recent years took this picture as a homage to Brandt. He regards him as a major influence. During World War II, Brandt was commissioned by the Ministry of Information to photograph people taking refuge in air raid shelters, as well as to document endangered buildings. These photographs were sent to Washington as part of the British government's attempt to persuade the US to enter the war. By this time, Brandt had disowned his German heritage and would tell people that he was born in South London. The rise of Nazism and his memories of being bullied as a schoolboy made him sever all connections. This work marked the end of his interest in photojournalism and straight documentary. Even at this time, though, he resisted the Henri Cartier-Bresson idea of the decisive moment. His pictures were slower, more reflective and constructed. During the war, city dwellers blacked out their windows to stop German bombers from identifying their targets. There were no cars on the roads during the night, and Brandt had the city to himself. He would use long exposures, sometimes up to 30 minutes in the moonlight, producing sad, eerie images of a city that appeared deserted.
London during the war. But the blackout was absolutely fantastically beautiful. No light, no lamp, no electric light, no cars, just moonlight. And it looked so soft. It was so soft. It was like a stage. stage lighting.
Brandt said that he wasn't interested in rules and conventions, and even though he wasn't particularly concerned with the technical aspects of photography, he would experiment just to see what the photographic medium was capable of. His early exposure to the Surrealists inspired him to experiment with superimposing two or more negatives. This famous shot is a composite made up of a picture of a gull, a misty view of the Thames, and later on he added the sun. He was a master of constructing scenes that blended documentary realism with surrealism. He would often stage and direct family members and friends to reenact specific social roles. He managed to create scenes that had a sinister or dreamlike mood. And by doing this, he legitimized the language of staging and manipulating scenes. In this picture, one of the three men was his brother-in-law, another was a friend of his, and they were each paid 5 bob, which is 50 cents, and he threw in a pub lunch. The appearance of the policeman was by chance.
Yeah, I was very lucky, because I was photographing this group, these men, and then suddenly a policeman came, and he looked, of course he looked at me at the camera, and it was just right, it made the picture. Sometimes one has to be lucky.
Photographer Dwayne Michaels acknowledged that Brandt's work had enormous influence on him. He took the idea of staging scenes a lot further and would produce fully directed sequences, creating a narrative as actors performed psychological or metaphysical scenarios. His spaces became theaters in which he explored ideas of fear, desire, memory, and death. More recently, photographer Todd Hydo has used models to act out his David Lynch-type dramas. Brandt said at one time that his nude pictures were his greatest love. Unfortunately, I can't show many of them on YouTube. He had experimented with photographing nudes throughout the 1930s, but his real breakthrough came when he became inspired by the wide-angle cinematography used in the 1941 film Citizen Kane. In those days, there weren't many wide-angle lens options available, but a friend told him about an adapted Kodak wide-angle camera that he had seen in a second-hand shop in Covent Garden. The camera had a fixed focus and could produce a panorama in a room within a single exposure. It was initially developed by the New York Police Department during the 1930s in order to allow untrained policemen to capture images of crime scenes. Using this lens, Brandt was able to create illusions of space and unusual perspectives. He transformed his nudes and figure studies into something that was closer to sculpture or abstraction. Ralph Gibson's fragmented and high-contrast nudes echo Brandt's abstraction of the body. But Gibson pushed his work further into the realm of symbolism and surreal sequencing. Around the time that Brandt was creating his nudes, there were a number of painters and sculptors who were experimenting with new ways of representing the human form. After the war, artists were eager to break with the classical ideas of idealizing the body. Henry Moore was producing figures with hollowed-out forms and exaggerated proportions. And both he and Brandt were merging their figures into the surrounding environment. Their bodies were transformed into shapes that accentuate both positive and negative space. Francis Bacon's bodies also became fused with their surroundings, and flesh became both the subject as well as a structural element within the compositions. The images created by these artists hint at something deeply unsettling, a reflection of a world that was unable to return to the pre-war idealism. I hope this video provided insight into Brandt's contribution and influence on the world of photography. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
This is a wartime picture taken at Spitalfields Church in the East End. And the man slept every night in this coffin because it was sheltered. It was never bombed.